right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. Do you know what, Blake? I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name before we started recording, but we're in here already. I'm going to have a guess. I'm going to have a stab. Is it Andrighetto or Andrighetto?
Andrighetto. Andrighetto. So the B ghetto is because B for Blake and then ghetto. So yeah, it's Blake Andrighetto. All good.
Is it Italian? And that's where the love of chicken parmigianas come from, right?
I guess I don't know really. Like I was sort of just looking for some new content to put out, and I'm not sure if you sort of followed along, but like last year, because predominantly, obviously, when I started, it was mostly just like my work content and like the grass, the cricket ground, footy ground sort of stuff, and then the start of last year, sort of reined in a little bit and had to be a little bit censored. Obviously, working at a school. It was all approved previously, but now sort of the rules have changed as it got bigger and bigger and bigger. They were like, oh, maybe we need to just chuck a little bit of censorship in there and make sure we contain things that they can contain. So there's a couple of little rules and regulations with the videos, and I was kind of like, oh, no, I'm not posting daily anymore. So I wanted to fill in some gaps. And me and my mates were already going out for Palmas every week, just to different venues, and we thought, oh, we might as well. And we were rating them as well within our own sort of phones and keeping tab of it, but then we were like, oh, maybe we should just see how this goes on. Like I thought, oh, we'll put it on TikTok, see how it goes, and yeah, it went all right. And we've sort of like slowed down a little bit over the summer because everyone was busy doing things, and sort of now we're trying to get back into the weekly routine of doing it.
Well, I told you I wanted to get you on because you're a school groundskeeper. You do these private day in life of private school keeper.
Yeah.
School groundskeeper. Got that backwards.
Day in life of a private school.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Back to the day in the life of a private school groundsman. That's it. Private school groundsman.
You said about 60,000 times, so you should be able to
get I don't do it often enough anymore, so I've forgotten.
That's what I told you I wanted you on for, but I lied. It's because I'm actually coming to Melbourne, and I just wanted to know where the best chicken palmy was, and I thought we should talk about that for an hour and a half. Oh, you say Parma, don't you? So you're wrong.
Man, like Parma, Palmy, Parmo, green jacket, gold jacket, doesn't matter. Like it's all gravy, baby. It's all gravy.
I don't care either, but some people get really hung up on really insignificant things.
That's kind of what I've been like really going hard on the Parma, because I know how many people get pissed off when I say Parm. Like if I say Parma, they're like Palmy. Like, well, keep commenting because it's just going to push the algorithm anyway. So
exactly.
Well, any comments are good comments.
Have you seen that video that Tim the Lawnmower Man put out about it was Milwaukee and Makita? He was doing a comparison
deliberately
mispronouncing these two mowers, and it was so unnatural the way he was saying it. Like he was 100% doing it to piss people off.
Yeah.
And I commented, I was like, I've never heard of those two brands. You know, like it works. You're just having a good laugh. So.
Yeah, you see lots of people online do that sort of stuff just because they know it triggers people and they know they're going to get those comments. Keep coming back, and it's like, yeah, well, we've figured out what we've got to do to keep it happening. Not that I do it like thinking, oh, this is going to get them all. It's because I'm Victorian, we say Parma, but like it really doesn't bother me that much.
I know what you mean, but the internet, it's funny. So I'll introduce you a little bit better because we're already having too much fun. But for those who don't know you, I got introduced to you from Nick from Lawns and Good Nick. Who has a following, and we were talking about you. Actually, we talked about you on the podcast, but you actually already told me about you on a phone call or something like that in the past. So I think I can't remember. I think I'd followed you before that conversation, but he was just talking about, hey, there's this guy in the area and he does some cool content. It's, groundskeeper stuff, and, you do cricket and AFL, and it's proper. It's a proper cricket pitch, right? That's the thing I really am interested in, because that's a flipping weird art in and of itself. The whole it's like you're doing the exact opposite that everybody wants to do with normal grass. 5 centimeters away is the opposite process. That you're trying to achieve. But and a lot of experience and stuff like that. So it's interesting, and anyway, I know that a lot of people would be interested to hear your story. But so welcome to the podcast. It's not people who are 5 minutes into this podcast going, why are we talking about chicken farmers? So you do that side of content, and then in addition to that, you started making this chicken parma stuff, and it started going a bit crazy, right? The following on you eating some chicken.
Yeah, a little bit. So like first video kind of popped off a little bit because obviously it was new and in the area, no one had really been doing it. I know there is a guy in Adelaide that does it, like in South Australia. Off the top of my head, I can't remember his name's Marcus or something, but he goes to a lot of like pizzerias and I'd never seen any of his content before, and he commented on one of the videos, maybe like 10 or 12 in, saying that I was copying it or something. I was like, I don't know who you are, but not in a disrespectful way. But then a few of them popped off, and some don't get views, some do get views. I think it depends on where you are, and like the ones that we've gone to in St Kilda area, I've noticed have gotten a lot more views, and I don't know if that's because the demographic there is like wider with like the backpackers and stuff, and maybe they like the video and it goes to other areas of the world. I'm not sure. I don't know how the TikTok algorithm works, but got a little cult following there. There's a lot of comments, people that have been begging for certain venues for almost a year now, and it's just hard to keep up because like how it works is they'll comment on it, and like originally I was sort of going through the comments and choosing one or two and putting them in a list, and then it got to the point where I was like, damn, I'm sick of choosing all these. So like we have a group chat, and my mate Bob will always message to go, where to do this week, lads? And I said, go in the comments, mate. Do you pick a place? That doesn't bother me. Just pick a place. We'll go. As long as it's in the comments, we're achieving something, because I don't want to go to anywhere that's not comedy, because then it seems like we're not listening to what people are saying. So Jacob, the other mate, he's been begging for one place that's never been commented, and we're like, nah, mate, until it gets commented, we're not going. So he's been commented on himself. We're like, nah, we're not doing your comment. Like you're not trying to. Yeah, he's trying to rig the system. We're not doing it,
mate. He's manipulating the algorithm just like you are putting in the funny.
True.
Actually, that's a way of you to get more comments, is to just completely ignore the most popular requests, because everyone will get more and more and more frustrated that you're not going, we've been telling you for ages, go to this bloody pub.
There's one, the Essendon Hotel, I think we're going to this week, so by the time this video comes out, we've probably already gone there. But that dude said he's been commenting on it for like a year almost, and he's even sent me DMs and stuff, and I'm just like,
from the hotel.
I don't think he's from there, but I don't know. Maybe he does work there. I'm not sure, but it's like, all right, we'll go. Like it's a big trip, but like Bob lives down that way now anyway, so it's like, we'll make an effort tomorrow night, the day before Anzac Day. We got the next day off, so all good. We'll head down there, have a few drinks, and see what happens.
But you do find, I would think that if somebody commented on my thing saying, I want you to come, say like a Parmigiana pub or a restaurant or whatever, I would be sus about going, just because they might recognize you, and then they give you a slightly bigger piece of chicken, and they really put some love and attention into it, and do you know what I mean? And then you're like, oh, this is a 9 out of 10. Everybody else goes and rush and whatever.
Yeah, this is
what I mean?
Yeah. So, we have had a couple of when I say we, I mean me, because the other boys don't have the account, but we've had a couple of emails here and there from like venues, or like sometimes venues will comment on it and be like, oh, come to us, and like, maybe. We have gone to a couple, and we don't tell them, like, because we were posting on like usually a day or two after. A lot of them think, like, I'll use that Kelly's in Cranbourne as an example. Not that I want to give them any publicity after the shit they were pulling, but
well, tell me about that in a minute, because I'm out of the loop.
So
anyway,
that was like one of the earlier ones, maybe in the first sort of 10 to 15, and we were getting a lot of comments for Kelly's in Cranbourne, and I was thinking, I don't know about Cranbourne, if there's any good joints there. And we're like, all right, it must be all right. So we got on the road and we went down there and did the review and everything. They obviously didn't recognise us. I'm not sure if they did or not, but this was early days, so probably not. And then the next day, someone sent me like a couple of Facebook posts from them. I was like, oh, what's this? And I hadn't posted the video yet, so I looked at the post, and they're going, oh, they must have caught wind that we were going there. And they said, oh, we've got these city slickers coming in from out of town to do this Parma. And it was on their, like, Kelly's Cranbourne Facebook page, run by the manager or whoever it is. Apparently, throughout COVID, he was doing some interesting posts about some things, and we won't get into all that, but he was writing some stuff about city slickers coming and, oh, we don't know what they look like and blah, blah, blah. But he put up some, like, he goes, they might look something like this. And he had like 3 photos of just random, like, real weird looking, ugly, bogan sort of people, like, that he's found on Google. And we're like, what the hell? Like, what's this all coming from? And he's like, oh, he wrote a big thing. I can't remember exactly what it said, but it pissed us off. And we're like, oh, fuck, we've already done this review. And they didn't get a great rating anyway. But I was about to post it, and I'd already done the whole voiceover, and I quickly scrambled because I was posting them all 7 o'clock every Wednesday or whatever day it was. And it was 10 minutes before, so I scrambled and I deleted the entire voiceover and just redid it all. Still gave them the exact same rating, but I made sure to say all this in it and put I overlaid the screen grabs of the Facebook on it, just so they knew that we knew it was there, and it people, and they got shredded in the comments from people.
Wow,
I was getting, I got DM'd from someone that even works there, and they were like, "Oh man, don't listen to this bloke. He's a bit loose on the social media. He doesn't understand. I think he was trying to do it out of jest and stuff, but it just come across real weird and negative and sort of desperate." Yeah, it was bizarre. The Parma was it wasn't a bad Parma. It was a bit weird because I used the lasagna bechamel sauce instead of cheese, the bechamel cheese sauce.
Oh no!
Instead of your normal cheese. No. And, yeah, the first quarter of it, I was like, "Oh, this is all right. This is a bit different." And as you get more and more through, you're like, "Oh, it's too much." You're like, "Nah, this isn't it." And
I mean, I feel we're going to talk about lawns at some stage, but yeah. I kind of feel like Parmy's. It's not that it's a standard of this is a good restaurant, but if you can't get a Parmy right, and here I am now judging myself for saying Parmy and Parma. I don't know, man. But if you can't get it right, that to me sounds like you've what are you doing wrong in the kitchen?
Yeah, it's pretty basic. I got the Hello. I know you and Nick talked about the Hello Fresh sort of thing, and they sent me through a kit to make a Parma, and it's just pretty easy to make. And it was actually good. And I've made them before at home, and they're pretty simple to make. You come across some we try to avoid the whole the Parma nights because pubs always do Parma nights. We try to avoid that because we've found that typically on a Parma night they're pumping out so many, the quality sort of drops off a little bit.
Of course.
Even though half of them say no, it's the same. It's not because they're going so fast. They probably make a batch of them beforehand and then they just reheat them, and you can kind of tell the difference. So we almost try to go on steak night, and then you'll order a Parma, and they're like, "Oh, you know what steak night?" I'm like, yeah, we know. We want a Parma. It's typically a lot better. But yeah, it's not. It must be hard to stuff it up.
Do you know, for the last few months, I've been working on a course to help people start and run a successful lawn mowing or gardening business. I've had a lot of questions over the years from people asking for coaching or asking for some sort of advice, and I'll help out as much as I possibly can, but at the end of the day, there's a limit to how much you can write in a comment, and I don't really have the time or skill set to do coaching. And so we've made this course from scratch. It's 47 lessons, over 6 hours of content. It is not a short little course that you can get done in a weekend, and also the price reflects that. But if you are somebody who is wanting to get into the industry from a different industry, or you're somebody who is really great at gardening, but maybe you need some help on the business side, I think the value for money is off the charts. I honestly think that if I had this course myself when I was first starting out, or even in the first few years of business, it would have saved me years and years and years of heartache and mistakes and pain, because a lot of us were making the same mistakes that I was making all those years ago. And it can be avoided. If you are somebody who that sounds interesting to you, check out the link. Oh, I should also say there is an exclusive group as well. It's not just a course. There's a group. You have conversations, ask questions, all that sort of stuff. I want it to be as helpful as possible. I want people to succeed in business because I think small businesses are awesome, and I think the gardening and lawn care industry is even better. So if that sounds like it's of interest to you, there's a link in the description. Check it out, and I'll see you there if it is the right thing for you. Anyways, let's get back into the podcast. It's official. We are doing a live podcast tour across Australia this winter. That's right. I'm packing up with the family, bringing the kids along, and we're driving through Australia, and we're going to go to lots of different places, interview people in situ, where they're from, ask some great questions. And you know what? We're going to do live events, and you're welcome to come. Now, there's some details that are going to come out in the future, but if you've got any ideas, you've got anything you want to say, hey, you should get this person on, or you should do this, or you should please come to my country town. I know it's small, but we can get enough people. I'm happy to go because we don't need big crowds. We're not looking for necessarily big crowds. We're just looking for a good time. Anyways, send me a message if you want to get part of that conversation, either in Instagram or LinkedIn. They're the places I check the most. And do you know what? I hope to see you on the tour. I'll let you know when we got some event dates and specific things going on and the people who are supporting it, because it's not happening, in a vacuum. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. Anyways, I'm not going to talk. I'm going to talk too much if I share too much information if I keep going. Get in contact, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'll see you hopefully in the live events, but definitely back into the podcast. Well, you catch them on a bad day or you catch them on a good day, and then all of a sudden, and the other thing is, like, have you ever been, I'm sure everyone's been to a restaurant where you have a meal and you go back a second time and your memory of the meal is like the best meal I ever had in my life, right? 100%, there's no close second, is 6 years ago. I was on a charity trip and I was cycling through Africa. I was in a place called, it is in Tanzania, and I had some friends and we were like in the middle of nowhere, and they said, always order chicken and chips because they guarantee that you don't order anything fish, whatever. So chicken chips, it's safe. You won't get sick. So we ordered that all the time. And no joke, they went and like caught the chicken, killed the chicken, plucked the chicken, cooked the it took so long.
Yeah, right.
And anyway, so I was sick of bloody chicken. It was, and the chips were also like hand sliced, cutting. Yeah. You can see them cooking it. Anyway, so it was nice, right? But after 3 weeks of that, I was sick of chicken and chips. And in that place in Africa, cheese is super expensive. Like what we would pay $8 for is $25. It's just, anyways, there's just no dairy, Anyways.
Yeah, right.
We went to this place called Arusha, which is near Kilimanjaro. And I had a friend from church years ago who lives there and works there now. And they were like, there's this Greek restaurant, or restaurant run by Greek people, and they serve Western food. And we'll take you and the boys there. And we went there and I got a pizza. And I promise you, it is the best pizza I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Hands down, not close. Best meal I ever had in my life. My wife came over a week later to there. We were going to go to the safaris and stuff. And I was like, we got to go to this restaurant. Got the same pizza. It was just a normal pizza. Yeah. And I think what it was is I had gone so long without the food that I liked that my taste buds were so like craving cheese and tomato sauce and whatever sausage they had. I don't even remember what I ordered specifically. But it was such a good pizza, and I don't really think it didn't look any different. It didn't, it wasn't like stale or anything. Yeah. So, I wonder if that's the case as well, that if you overdid it and you started having palmy every second night to get the algorithm up and stuff, all of a sudden you just hate palmy and it's not the same thing anymore,
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, with the pizza after having the chicken and chips for 3 weeks straight and just having the best pizza, that's kind of like me with KFC after like a 2-week hiatus. It's like, man, I'm craving this zinger burger and it tastes so good every time.
So
and then you have it a couple of days later again, you're like, it's actually not that good. But I hear what you're saying.
It's also like KFC chips are the best or the worst, in my opinion.
KFC in general is either the best or the worst. Like, it's so hit and miss, especially the one where I live. Like,
really?
I don't know if I live in Clayton now, so I used to live in Brighton, and the one there is always pretty good. But this one here, it's got to be notoriously known as one of the worst in Victoria. Like, we try to avoid it, like, and it's only like 500 meters from where I live, so I try and like we'll go to another town.
Must be bad.
I reckon I've had it good once, like fresh once. Every other time, just dry, old. And I try to go at like peak times because I grew up like working at KFC as a kid. So I figured out like the times. I'm like, all right, the cooks change over at 5:30 or whatever. Usually you do a big cook up. 6 o'clock, you're probably going to get the freshest stuff. Go there at 6 o'clock, got the oldest, worst stuff. I'm like, this sucks. I don't know where to go.
I don't know how they do that, but I feel like the chips are where it's hit and miss. But like popcorn chicken's always the same. Burgers are pretty close to being always the same. But anyways, so
enough KFC promo.
I mean they've never paid me a cent. Them and Pepsi
If
Max owe me a hell of a lot of money, I tell you
yeah,
what.
yeah. Hey, if anyone from KFC is watching, feel free to sponsor us. I mean, we'll take
I
it.
know, exactly. You know,
If the if the
KFC can do a
Colonel's at
chicken
home,
parma night.
yeah,
Colonel's been
I think
long dead, but if you're listening, mate,
yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, someone's ready to replace him, so it's all good.
Yeah. But anyways, talking about this is Australian Lawn and Garden podcast, and we've done 17 minutes on chicken parmas
yeah.
and chicken sandwiches. But talking about, so you're a groundskeeper. How do you get into private school groundskeeping? Because there's a thing about this where it's like, because we look after a school, and I've done a lot of work at schools over the years. I started as a gardener. So the school I was at, they had a lawn contractor. And so I would do little bits and pieces as needed, but most of my work was gardening. That's how I started the industry.
Yeah.
Well, not really, but that was my first real job in the industry.
Yeah.
Did that for a few years. Started the business, and then obviously through business, contract work. So you do a mulching job here, hedging job there, a couple of aerations, whatever. And, eventually we got a contract.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between like, we just mow the oval and make it look nice. And then there's a jump up to what we do, which is mowing and fertilization and full programs. But then as soon as you chuck into, like, this is actually a school that has a proper sporting program and they want a real cricket wicket, that's another whole different thing. I've never made a cricket wicket in my life. So I'm really clueless on that. So how did you do you have a sports turf degree? Is it something that you grew into over time? Tell me the story.
So we'll go all the way back to when I finished school, I guess.
Yeah. When were you born, and how big did you weigh, and what cylinder mold did you
I believe
get?
one Thaggy Hospital, 4.5 pounds. No,
that's tiny. What
I don't know. I don't have kids, so I wouldn't have a clue. Just said numbers.
7 pounds is normal. Anyways, keep going.
I was a small child. I think I was about 4'5" until about year 11. So maybe I was that small.
That's where the KFC comes from. You needed to get some calories in it. Great.
Yeah. Well, once I started working there, I got that chicken, the protein, and everything. So help me out.
That's it. Anyways, man. What's the story?
I finished school, and then the next year, sort of like a transition year. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was just working at KFC, and then I got a job in sort of construction, building roof trusses, and all my mates were working at the desalination plant and getting paid $3,000 a week, and I was like, damn, this sucks. I want to do that sort of stuff. They're raking it in. I was living with them as well. And then Dad just kept telling me, get a job at the camp. Like, I grew up in, like, down near Phillip Island. I don't know if you know Phillip Island, but down that way, sort of country boy. Yeah, so country boy down there. Played footy as a kid, played cricket and everything like that, and used to mow my grandma's lawns growing up to get a bit of extra cash. So Dad would always just be like, get a job at the council, you'll be set for life, get a job at the council. I'm like, I don't even know what council workers do. So I started just to please Dad.
I still don't know. Like,
I
feel like it's oxymoron sometimes, council worker. It's like two words that cancel out each other.
Yeah, true. Well, I worked there for like 7 years, so I definitely know. I was just, Dad would be like, go knock on their door. Like, there wasn't even jobs advertised. Like, go knock on their door and just show your face and tell them your name. I was like, seems like a bold move, but all right, I'll do it. So I started knocking on one of the manager's doors, not at his house. I didn't know where he lived, but going to the depot. And then a job came up for a job come up for a sports turf management apprenticeship, and they had a kid that was doing it like through VCAL with them, and I think he was like, I thought he was the front runner, but I'm not sure if I don't think they thought that. So went for the job. It was pretty much just me and him going for the interviews, and ended up getting the job. Didn't really know a whole lot about it. Just knew that cricket grounds, footy grounds. Gonna cut some grass and see how we go. I believe I started in like January, so peak summer as well. Oh, wow. My first day sucked because we had like the One Thaggy show, which is like a big sort of circus carnival, everything sort of on like the main oval as well. They had like horses and everything on the main oval, and that whole day or two, my job was to just like fill in divots and just like level it all out with like a lawn level or a rake, and just my hands were covered in blisters. I was like peeling off the skin of my whole palm. It sucked.
Oh wow!
And even my boss at the time, like, he still works there now. He's a good dude, but I remember in my first week, he goes, "Oh, if you actually want to do like sports turf and stuff, probably don't work here. And I was like, damn, like my apprenticeship's 3 days in, and you already told me to leave. Like,
yeah,
hang
right.
on. Yeah, so I
Well,
kind
at
of
least he was honest.
Yeah, like I think he meant sort of if you want to really go far in the industry, like don't be condensed to just to this small town Cancel.
Yeah.
And like because in that area we weren't doing the turf wickets, so we were just doing the sport like the outfields. There wasn't a whole lot of turf wickets down there. It was mostly the synthetic cricket wickets. So it was basically just mowing the outfields, fertilising, the occasional like aeration, like with just a spiker, not even like a proper vertidrainer. We'd get evergreen in sometimes to do the big renos, and then the line marking for footy. So it was pretty cruisy. Summer back then was actually like my easiest time of year because all I was doing was taking the fairway mower on a truck, like on a truck and trailer, and going to all different ovals around the area, like around the whole Bass Coast Shire area. So I was just cutting 4 or 5 grounds a day, twice a week.
AstroTurf cricket pitches? Like
yeah. So So we weren't doing anything on those. Literally just the outfield, and because I was basically an apprentice, and even in my next couple of years, I didn't really have a whole lot of responsibilities there because it was a team of 3. It was me, a girl I worked with, Renee, and then my boss, Greenie at the time. So that was easy. And then just needed a change, sort of got to 6, 7 years in and had a bit going on in life. And I was like, like with those small country towns, you either get out, and I hope I don't annoy anyone that's still down there now that might be listening to this podcast, but you kind of
share it with the whole town.
Yeah, you've kind of got an option, like you either get out early and you stay out, and otherwise you kind of stuck there. And I know a lot of people like it's a beautiful area, but I guess it's not really for me, as I found out since leaving. Even going back, all my family still live there. I stay for a day and I kind of get bored, and maybe that's just because all my friends are busy doing their life things as well, so I'm not really doing much there. So I moved up here, and I kind of didn't know what to do. I had the intention of actually getting out of the industry, just because the stuff I was dealing with at the time, I was like, I just want to change. Like I thought I needed to change everything, but realistically, I didn't. So I was still traveling back to Wonthaggi after leaving here, maybe 3 times a week, just to work sort of part time, just to get a bit of money and be like, until I found a job. Ended up just joining like a recruitment agency. I can't remember exactly what the agency was called, but they put me on to Super Gardens. They're a landscape company around here. I believe they're still going. I was only there working at Essendon Fields for maybe a month. Wasn't really what I wanted to do. And the people that were in charge there didn't really treat the staff right, so I gave them a handwritten letter and said, I'm out of here. Turns out I didn't actually have to do that because I was through a recruitment agency. I didn't realise I didn't have to quit the actual job. I just had to tell them, so they were a little bit annoyed at me for that. And then
they rubbing salt in their wounds.
Yeah,
I don't know how to tell you, but you guys are wankers.
Yeah, and I went pretty hard on it because they just fired my apprentice. Like I got given an apprentice. He was a good dude, and he was like, I remember he was mowing using a walk behind cylinder mower, and he was cutting like the roundabouts of this area, and he got a phone call from the boss, and I don't want to air too much dirty laundry, but he was like, you didn't empty our bins in the office. They got this little desk bin, like a tiny little desk bin. I'm like, mate, like it's pretty easy. And he's going, you didn't empty our desk bin this morning. And he goes, okay. Like I didn't realize that was my job. And he's like, come back now and empty this bin. He goes, I'm in the middle of mowing like a roundabout. I'll finish this and then I'll come to you. And the dude just yelled at him. He goes, come here now and empty this bin and like leave your stuff there. About 10 minutes later, I saw him driving home. And I was like, what's going on? I rang him up and he was crying and stuff. And he's like, they fired me because I didn't empty the bins. And I was like, nah, that's not good. So yeah, so they fully just sacked and he was a good worker, and they just sacked him because he didn't empty this bin, and because he back chatted and said, like it's a tiny little plastic bag, like surely you can do it. I don't know exactly what he said to him, but he it was pretty bad. So yeah, I left there, and then I got a job at Landscape Solutions through the same recruitment agency, and I think on like day one, the boss there tried to poach me from. I didn't know how recruitment agencies work. Apparently, you have to if you're going to work for a company, you have to still go through the recruitment agency for 8 weeks or something like that, or they have to pay out 8 weeks. There was something there that he was trying to get around and managed to get around it. And yeah, I don't know exactly how it happened, but I ended up working on Landscape Solutions. And I was just sort of floating around areas around the southeast Melbourne area. And I remember the girl I was working with at the time, she goes, "Oh, we're going to go to Brighton Grammar School and pick up a wheelbarrow," because Landscape Solutions had the contract for Brighton Grammar School. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I've never been there," but she's like, "Yeah, it's a private school, like it's all good." And I was thinking, "Oh, this is going to be sick. Like it's going to be a good ground." Rocked up and like I don't know, it was like February, March, so peak summer, everything, and the ground had been hit by like black beetle and like red-headed cockchafer and stuff, and it was just a dust bowl. Like all the grass was basically gone. There was little pockets of cooch. And I kind of looked at it and thought, "Oh, this isn't what I expected from a high-end private school."
Yeah.
So, and the guy there got sort of thrown into the deep end, and as time's gone on, we've learned more about what the whole situation was. But so he was struggling to sort of keep up. He had a golf course background. He came there and they just didn't have the support for him. And he ended up leaving maybe like 2 months later, and they said to me, "Oh, do you want to work at MSAC, which is like the soccer field and that, which is a good field, or do you want to go to Brighton Grammar?" And I was like, at the time I hated soccer, so I was like, I don't want to work with soccer. So I said, all right, I'll go to Brighton Grammar School. I'll challenge myself, see if I've got it in me, because I'd never been in charge of like anything. So I was come from an apprenticeship and stayed there under someone else, and I was like, all right, we'll test what I can do. And I remember I started there in May of 2018, still with Landscape Solutions. Took over. We shut down the Oval for like 8 weeks because they were building like a new pavilion on the side, so they couldn't play first footy there anyway because the ground was too small. It was like 3/4 of the ground, so they only had like juniors and stuff. So we managed to move everything off for like 8 weeks, roped it all off, and did a bit of like seeding and everything. Tried to get it back in time for the opening of that new building. They had their first game of footy there in like 2 years or whatever, and it was all good. And then I had the ground looking really good. Probably like late November. I remember like one day I took a picture of it and I was like, "Oh, this looks unreal." Everyone was happy with it. And then it was a hot weekend. It was probably the first hot weekend. And I'd been trying to, because usually I'll spray a saliprin out in September, like most people would. Yeah. So I was trying to get that to push through, and the company was saying, no, you don't need to. And I was like, well, you should, because like we know what happened last year. And one of the guys that sort of got put into a role as like a turf guru, turf supervisor of the whole company, was actually younger than me at the time. I don't know how he ended up in that role, but he might have known someone. He was telling me, "Oh no," because I showed him like black beetle walking around on top of the ground and stuff, and he goes, "No, you don't have to spray because like they're adults. You only have to worry about the babies." I'm thinking, well, if there's adults, there's going to be some like larvae and that under there, and there's going to be the like. We'll say, all right, whatever, all good. So that weekend was hot. Came back on the Monday, and it was almost like a third of the ground was gone. I don't know how it happened so quick, but it was just like yellowed off because it oversowed with rye. And I was told that it was a full cooch ground oversowed with rye. But I know back from when I first got there that there was 10% of cooch in the ground. Yeah. And like all the rye just got attacked in the heat, like destroyed. And I was getting all the questions handed on me, "Well, what's going on? But luckily I was like pretty tight with the COO of the school, and he's still there now. So I wouldn't say I was tight with him, but like I was always having meetings with him and talking to him about what I wanted to do and what we should be doing and everything. So he knew my plans and what I was wanting to do to the ground and get it like to the standard of that I thought it should be. And we sort of had the email threads of them saying no to a lot of things, and pretty much got to the point. I think it was like maybe January or February of 2019. They all came in. Even the big boss from Sydney came in, and they were talking. They were trying to throw all the blame on me, and he sort of stepped in for me and was like, "Hang on, now I've seen the email threads. I know what he wants to do and what should be done, and we back him." And then I was planning to leave. I was like, I don't want to work for this company anymore. And the COO goes, no, hang tight. Like something, just wait a little bit, give it a few weeks and see what happens. He's had a plan. And I was like, okay. And then the company advertised for my job to replace me at Brighton Grammar. And I was like, what's going on here? Even though I asked them and they were like, no, it's someone to come help you. I'm like, I don't need help. I need you guys to help by giving me the budget and like actually letting me do what I want to do. And then we had another like weird meeting just popped up out of nowhere, and they pretty much said, "Oh, look, the contract's been cancelled. They're not in charge anymore. and they've agreed to let us employ you directly and 3 other people of your choice from the team that we had there, because we had a couple of gardeners, a couple of grounds, and everything like that. Yeah. And one of the dudes that I was like, I want to keep him was my new apprentice at the time, and we had been working together like on the mobile sites before we started there, and he wanted to get into turf. So he stayed. One of the gardeners stayed because he'd been there for like 4 or 5 years. He loved it. And then I ended up actually like poaching one of the good gardeners from Deakin University from Landscape Solutions as well. And I don't think they were too happy about that. So
still the whole team.
Yeah, because I was like, all right, I don't really know many people here, and we need people. And like, he was a good gardener at Deakin. I was like, all right, I'll try to sway him to come here, and he ended up coming over. He's still there now with us now, so he's hung around. And then just took over, got all our own equipment, employed by the school directly, and since then it's been smooth sailing. Because like at the start it was like, all right, just do it. They didn't have a clue about the budget. They were like, we don't know what it's going to cost, so first year, just do whatever has to happen to get it up and running and getting good. And then we'll go from there. Like every year, we'll see what the budget is and try to bring it down or whatever we need to do. Did that. And obviously then we went into COVID, and the ground was perfect throughout COVID because we had no sport on.
No one's on there. Yeah, exactly.
It was looking unreal. I loved it because I'd rock. Like, we still worked through most of COVID anyway. So rocking up and just striping it up, looking good as. And that's when the TikTok sort of started, because I just
had time.
Downloaded I downloaded TikTok, and I was like, I'll start posting some stuff. And there was a few cringy videos I posted early on that weren't any grass related stuff. I was thinking, oh yeah, I know, like I'm a funny guy, I'll be able to get some views here. I'm getting like 10 views just doing this stupid shit. And then I posted like a before and after of the oval, just a bird's eye view from when I started, and then to that like of March 2020 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I just posted it, went to bed, and my phone was blowing up. And I'm like, what's happening here? And I sort of left it. Woke up in the morning and checked, and it only had 20,000 views. But to me, I was like, hey, I've gone viral. This is huge. Like, I had 2,000 likes, 20,000 views, and heaps of comments. And I think it was then like throughout the day, I still had my notifications on, and they were popping up everywhere. Comment. I was like, what's going on? And then it was mostly Americans, because there was a tree. Like, there's a tree next to the ground, and with the bird's eye view shot, one of them, it's like there's no shadow, and then the next one you can see like a bit of a tree shadow, and they go, oh, that wasn't 2 years because that tree's massive. I'm like, that's a shadow. Like, they thought it was an actual tree planted in the thing. I'm like, no, that's a shadow. Yeah. And it was just like people just getting worked up over stuff, and that blew up. And then I thought, all right, maybe people don't, like, no one really posts this sort of stuff, or I hadn't seen much people posting anything like that, so started posting all that, and then that took off. But this is meant to be about the work.
No, that's fun.
Yeah. Cricket pitches, I've up to the point of getting to Brighton Grammar School, I'd never actually worked on a turf cricket pitch, doing proper wickets and stuff like that. I did.
So how did you get into learning that? Did you just like go on good old YouTube, or did you have a chat with somebody? Or
so like when I was in my last sort of year spent at the council, I rebuilt one. Like, I helped rebuild one, and my boss at the time, he went to Thailand for like 8 weeks and left me in charge. I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. So I sort of did a little bit, but I'd never actually prepared a wicket. And then obviously when I came to Brighton Grammar, I was working with the guy that was there before me. So I helped him out every now and then, and he was sort of showing me a little bit of it, of like what to do. And we only had the walk behind, like MoMaster, big pedestrian roller.
Yep.
So I was doing it with that, and the school they were never happy with the wickets, because it was just like, there's only so much compaction you can do with that like pedestrian roller, and the wickets had so much thatch, it had never been ripped up and redone. It was just every time they wanted to do anything with it, they would just relay sod straight on top. So I was just building a huge thatch layer, and just had no bounce. Balls were rolling, like going underground. Yeah, so probably through like Will Pekowski's era of playing at the school, he probably got bowled a bunch of times because the ball was just going underground and hitting the stumps.
Well, he doesn't like bouncers anymore. So
well, maybe it's the pitcher's fault for him not learning how to play them, because they would just never get above knee height there. So who knows?
Yeah.
Hopefully he does get back into it, though, because he's a jet.
Oh, mate, it's terrible. For those who don't know, he's a very talented cricketer who's had a few concussions, and he doesn't. I mean, like, nobody responds well to it, but he responds especially poorly, and it does affect him, which is sad because he was considered probably the next big thing.
Next in line to open for sure. And I think a lot of his concussions came from school football because
Oh.
I saw like a list of them, and I think he had like 4 or 5 at school football, and then it's just stemmed from there. And now it's like any little knock is just bad. So anyway, so I was helping him out, and then once I got the job and we got through a football season, and then heading into the cricket season, I was talking to Adam Thorne from Grass Up. Not sure if you've ever heard of him, but so Grass Up's a company here that predominantly do cricket wickets and renovations, so they'll go around and do renovations to all the schools. So he came and did like our pre-season renovation on it to get it overshadowed with rye, leveled out and everything. And I sort of leaned on him a little bit and asked him sort of like, can you help me square up the table so I know where the crease is going to go and all that sort of stuff. And he's like, yeah. And sort of contacted him a fair bit. And then I found, do you know John Shannon? You ever heard of John Shannon?
No, I haven't.
So he's
a lot of guys over there probably that I haven't.
Yeah. So he's an older guy, absolute like turf guru, and he's been the head groundsman at Melbourne Grammar School for years and years, but he's also coaching their first 11 cricket and top bloke. But he's got a website for like how to prepare cricket wickets, like turf wickets.
Oh,
and I think he did it through. I'm pretty sure it has like a Cricket Victoria logo on top of it, so it might have been in conjunction with them. So I found that. I think I just stumbled upon that. And I was going through it and I was reading that religiously for the first season and just sort of getting my head around things. And obviously every wicket table is different. Every conditions are different. Grass tops play differently. So sort of 1.5 season, you start realising what's working for you and what's not working for you. And sort of just got to the point where I didn't need to look at the website or whatever anymore because I had enough experience to be like, all right, I know this works. And I guess, just trial and error really. And then, just kept doing that and started posting a bit of the cricket wickets and all that, and all the students started following, and it sort of blew up at the school, and then it just kept getting a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger. But now, we did a full rebuild of the oval eventually, December of 2022. So the ground itself, was very uneven, a lot of highs and lows. Irrigation was spread out way too far. So you would never get in that head-to-head contact, like nothing overlapping. And pretty much every summer, because it was mostly ryegrass, you would end up with just like donuts and just shit happening. You're like, oh, what's going on here? And I was like, everyone's off on their school holidays through the summer holidays, and we get like a 2 to 3 week sort of shutdown period. I was coming in every single day, moving around a little mobile sprinkler to try and like a knocker, just trying
to fit in the spots that are dry.
Yeah, and it was just draining. Like every night, because luckily I lived close, but I only moved there because I was working there. Every night throughout like the whole summer, and not a lot of people would even know this, that I was doing this sort of stuff, but like because we had the irrigation box at the school, I didn't have access to it on my phone or anything like that. I was driving past the school every night, like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, just to check if the irrigation was actually working. So like I'd just pull up on the side, pitch black, just trying to look out and see if I could see water going around. And I was like, good, I can go sleep. Like I can actually sleep easy now.
If you have been going to those big hardware stores, big nurseries, you know the places I'm talking about, to get your lawn care and some garden care products from, well, at the end of the day, here's my honest take. Whilst there are some good products there, if they are good products in very small quantities and the price is so expensive for a commercial operator, it's just not really a viable option. The cheaper stuff, well, it's cheaper for a reason. If you're looking for a new supplier, I highly recommend the Lawn Shed. They have a trade account. Long-time listeners know that they've been a sponsor for a very long time, and hundreds of people have signed up to the Lawn Shed from this podcast. They are honestly the place that I get my stuff from. It's actually pro-grade stuff used at stadiums. We've talked to different stadium managers here that on the podcast that have used it. It's really high-quality stuff, and they have so much product, so much range that I'm sure there's something that's going to suit you. If you're looking for sprayers and spreaders and all that sort of stuff, there's actually a lot of interesting tools there as well, not just products. Perhaps there's a good fit for you. If there is, jump on the website, sign up, and when you sign up, say that you heard about us through the Australian Lawn and Garden podcast, or you can click the link that's in the description. Either way, that helps support the podcast. And so, look, if you're spending money at those big shops, I understand it. Sometimes it's the most convenient thing possible. But do you know what? Getting that better, high-quality stuff, I have found personally, and this is my honest experience, The higher quality stuff got better results. Those better results got me more income. And ultimately, it was a massive return on investment, not just ticking a box for a product. Anyways, if you're interested in that, jump on the Lawn Shed, and I'll see you in the podcast.
Just because I was so...
rye grass is just so, especially in the heat, it's not like a cooch or a kikuyu that, or even buffalo that can, because a lot of people listening to this, they might be working in the industry, but they're not working. Yeah. There's very rarely would you get a pure rye lawn. Yeah, maybe in Tasmania or even central New South Wales or Victoria, but it's not as common.
No, and not at all.
Yeah.
Like all the council grounds I worked at down in Montague, they were mostly rye. So that's what I was used to. And because the climate down there is a bit colder and it doesn't get as hot in the summers, I was like, oh, yeah, this will be fine. And I love how rye straps up.
Of course.
But with that irrigation system and just how much you actually need to water the rye, I was pumping like 15 minutes, 20 minutes per station every single night. And even leading up to cricket, like I wouldn't do it on like a Friday leading up to a cricket match or anything, but I remember there was one game, it was like 40 degrees on the Friday and the Saturday. And I asked, because I could see it just burning, like in front of my eyes, watching the cricket on the Friday, because they play 2-day matches on the Friday, Saturday. I was just watching it and I could see it just slowly burn. I was like, oh, this is not going to be well. And I asked the coach, I'm like, can I please just water it overnight? And he goes, no, you're not allowed to. And I was like, oh. And I was like, that night, I don't reckon I slept. I was just laying there going, oh. And then the next day, luckily, it was like cloud cover and it wasn't actually as hot, but it burnt it out heaps of it. And yeah, it was just a stressful time having that much rye in the ground. And obviously, I still haven't taken a holiday since I started work at Brighton Grammar. So I haven't gone, I've had a couple of days off here and there or whatever, but I've never actually gone on a holiday since then because I've had apprentices and then led into another apprentice as soon as he got qualified. And just, I had so much on my plate. I'd put so much pressure on myself throughout those years with the ryegrass. And I was like, oh, I need to make sure everything's done because no one else was doing that extra bit to do it. They all lived far away and I was the only one that was close. I was like, oh God. So I just stressed myself out all the time. And I would always ask for, I'd plant the seed of, we need a rebuild eventually. We got to do something. It had never been touched. It's built on a tip. It's in a basin. And every time it rains, it used to anyway, it had no drainage. So I remember one day in a January, must have been straight after COVID or just before COVID hit, it pissed down rain in January, 40, 50 mil in a 5-hour period. And I didn't think anything of it because I hadn't seen that rain at that ground before. And I was like, oh, at least it's raining. It's going to feed the ryegrass. And I got to work the next day and half the ground was underwater. And I don't mean just wet. It was actually a lake. It was underwater. Yeah. And me and the gardener and that going out there and it's up to our hips in water. And it was all the way out to the wicket table.
So it must have been a massive drop then. Very even,
but we have tanks under the oval. There's a tank that collects all the not all the rain, but what it can. And then we have a tank under the soccer field that is the bigger tank, and the one from under the oval feeds the one under the soccer field, and that controls all the irrigation. And I guess it doesn't take that much to fill up, but it filled up. But there's no outlet on the ground. We had no drainage, there was no stormwater outlets or anything. So it literally had nowhere to go. So it filled up and it was up to our hips, and we ended up rushing around, hiring big pumps from Kennards and stuff, and running hoses out onto the road into the gutters, on the roadside gutters. And I remember it took 3 days for it to go all the way down. And luckily this was during the school holidays. So I was out there filling up the pump with unleaded every 2 hours just to make it go, even go home, come back, doing it all night, until it was obviously too late to be running the pump with houses around. Took 3 days and I was like, oh, finally it's gone. That night, another 60 mil of rain. Did it again. Gee. I was like, God. So just one thing after the other. Got it done. And then I don't know if you've seen any of the grass pimple videos that I did a few years ago that there was big bubbles in the grass. So, and that was because a lot of people oh, you got to burst water main and stuff. It wasn't that. It was we were flushing the water into the council pits outside.
Yeah.
And it was clogged up down the line, 100 metres down the line or something. And the water was just bouncing back. So I don't know how it somehow got back under the ground, but it was bouncing back into our tanks under the oval, and it was just lifting up the pit lids that are under the ground and everything like that. And we sort of, once we figured that out, we got the council to come, and they had to run their little hedgehog thing that goes through and rips out all the tree roots in the pipelines and stuff, and they cleared that out, and that was working okay. But every time it rained, we still had to pump it out, and it just got repetitive and just annoying as. And then they eventually were like, all right, we'll do the rebuild, because like I think I was kind of not threatening to leave, but I was at the point where I was like, I can't keep doing this, because like it's running me into the ground. I'm so stressed. I can't like maintain a relationship outside of work, because it's work. So I eventually convinced them to go with the rebuild, and best thing they've ever done, because like
it costs a lot of money though. Hey, like it sounds like it's not just like, oh, I've put some grass over the top.
Yeah, so I don't know what the price of like a full size rebuild, like it's got to be upwards of like $1 million, because like usually you're digging up everything, putting in all new irrigation, drainage, bringing a heap of sand in, and like leveling it all. Luckily, our soil profile was really good, so Evergreen just came in, took all the turf off, sort of blecked it all, leveled it out. Then they chucked in irrigation, drainage, and they didn't have to bring in any sand at all. So I think a lot of the cost is actually the sand, because it wasn't even close to half of that. I don't know I probably do know the exact cost, but I probably shouldn't say it. And but it's not as much as people would.
17 Zinger boxes.
yeah, maybe 18. But definitely wasn't as much as people thought it was, because I was getting a lot of people from the public walk past going, "Oh, this must have cost $1 million." I'm like, nah, like not even 50% of that. And then, so we had. I was beside myself, because it was coming into like it was the start of December, and they were finished by Christmas. So they did it all in a 3-week period, which is unreal. But because we had such a quick turnaround, we're like, oh, we need they have to get back on it for cricket at the start of February when school's back. So we booked it in like 8 to 10 months in advance and had it all ready. So it was good to go. And just going from like having 10 stations of irrigation, like 10 bays, to 24, and just actually having like fully automated irrigation. Everything's going head to head. I can control it on my phone with the Rainbird app, like from home. I'm just bang if I want to water it. Yep, all good, perfect. And I actually got that Christmas break off. Like, I finally got a Christmas to go home and see my family and everything like that. I wasn't stressed about, I need to move a knocker around or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it was good just to know that everything was watering and growing. And now, like, we got through that first cricket season good. It was a bit thatchy because it was obviously new sod and everything like that. So they were like, oh, the ground's a bit slow. I'm like, give it a little bit. Like, the first 12 months are going to be an establishment phase. Just it'll get better. And the first footy season was all right. We only oversowed with like 150 kilo of rye for that first footy season, just because it was we didn't want to sort of overshadow the cooch and have too much rye be the dominant force. So sprayed that out, and then here we are now. I guess had another full cricket season, and now going into football now. So it's all worked out all right.
Well, I was going to think, like, I was thinking naturally, having worked at schools, that often the kids are the biggest challenge. It's clearly, you've had other things. But how do you go with kids? Because, it depends on the age of the kids and what kind of they do and all that sort of stuff. Because like, at the primary school that we do, it's like, I mean, they don't do anything stupid or anything.
Yeah.
Do you find problems with kids just mucking around and doing stupid stuff, or even teachers doing stupid stuff?
Yeah. So I actually started the TikTok mostly because I knew that the kids had seen some of them, like at the start. Mm-hmm. So I thought, all right, if I can start posting stuff about the ground, because a lot of people think all you do is you mow grass, the end. Mow grass, roll grass, done. So I thought if I can post some videos actually showing how much work we put in and seeing all the little things we're doing and why we're doing it, I can actually explain what we're doing. It might help them understand. And it's like, because before that I was trying to educate the teachers and all that on why I'm doing something. They'd be like, oh, why can't I do my PE class there where it's dirt? I'm like, no, we're trying to get the grass to grow. Like, I was just trying to explain stuff. So I thought, all right, if I do this, it might reach some people that actually like will understand. And I started noticing the difference with like the boys they started recognizing me. Oh, I saw you TikTok. I was like, oh, sick.
Yeah.
And then, it was the worst. Like when it really sort of took off, they were yelling out Bigano from like every time they'd walk by. Oh, Bigano!
Yeah.
I was like, oh no, don't draw too much attention.
I was thinking that. That's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, now the groundskeeper's got a following on the internet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And kids are annoying sometimes, man.
Yeah, nah. There was one kid, like the first kid that ever came up to me. I remember it was like during the school holidays. He came up and he goes, "You're Bigetto, right?" And I was like, "Oh, I mean, Blake, yeah. What? I don't know. I didn't know how to act. I was like, I don't know. I only had like 2,000 followers." And he goes, "No, you're famous on TikTok." I'm like, "Am I?" And he goes, "Yeah, you've got 2,360." Like he knew exactly the amount of followers I had, and I was like, "That's weird, but okay, thanks." And then he was one of the boys that would always yell out, all the time. Like, he's still at the school now. I think he's in like year 11 or 12. He good dude. He calls me Blake now, so that's a lot better. But like, yeah, all the boys, they started noticing, and I started noticing a shift of like, they weren't walking through the oval to get from class to class. They were going around. They would actually stop and have a conversation. They'd be like, "Oh, saw that. Like, that's good." And they started respecting it a bit more, which was a nice sort of change of pace. And I suppose, I think a couple of years ago, they were taking the piss a little bit of me, like, because like one of their staff members were posting TikToks, and there was some that weren't school related, and a little bit of like just banter and stuff. Like I consider myself a bit of a kid as well, so I'm happy to have a chat with them and have a laugh and joke. I'm not too serious, and I think they get that from the videos as well. Now more so, they're not really asking anything about the grounds, or they're just going, "Oh, where's the next Parma?" Like, or they'll suggest stuff. That's all. They go, "What's the next Parma?" What is it? Or like, "Oh, you going to make any runs this weekend? Like, how many are you going to make? Like, take a few catches on the week?" Like, they'll talk about cricket or like Palmers.
Yeah.
Which is decent. I guess. Well, I guess when I started there, all the kids that were in year 7 actually all the kids that were in year 7 would be gone now, but all the kids that are in year 6 when I started would be now in year 12. So it's kind of they've seen it throughout the whole time, and now they're at that like the highest level of the school, and they all. It seems like they respect it anyway, and they respect me to an extent. I don't know if
there's a bit of culture that's changed. Yeah,
I
know what you mean. It's not because it is one of those things where people have a preconceived idea, like you're talking about that. Oh, it's just you're just cutting grass, and some people that's all they ever do at school because that's all the school's got a budget for. It's a small school, it's a public school. There's definitely a lot more that goes on. I mean, way more that goes on, especially for a proper sports field. And then once people have that understanding, then they can understand it.
Yeah, they start respecting it,
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that like the students do now that really grinds my gears would be just the rubbish. Like, it's an all boys school, and like they're constantly wrestling each other and fight and do whatever you want. But I swear like. They've got tunnel vision that just avoids bins. Like they can't see that we've got plenty of bins around, and all of us, like me, my apprentice, the gardeners, we walk around in our certain areas every morning picking up rubbish. And I don't know if the students even know this, but because they're not there, but we're the ones that have to pick up the rubbish after them. And you fill up a normal sized bin like 3 or 4 times every morning, and most of the rubbish is within a 5 to 10 meter radius of an actual bin, like the proper big bins they're meant to put it in. And it's like we've tried so many things, and I think I was talking to the CEO a couple of weeks ago, and I think he's got a plan to hopefully make it a little bit better. I think they're going to do like a point system on putting rubbish in the bins and like make it sort of a bit of a game, like technology based, and help out their school houses or whatever they are. Like, you know, when you're at school, you got greenhouse, red house, whatever. So something like that, like a 10 points Gryffindor for putting rubbish in the thing.
It's a Gryffindor.
So,
well, I used to work
hopefully they do something.
So when I was at the first job, it was the same thing where because I was a gardener, it was a contract on the lawns, and it was a public school, and it was a big, fairly nice public school, but they weren't that fancy with everything. But yeah, start of every day after recess, after lunch, 20 minutes, half an hour, just going around picking up. How many kids are at the school that you're at?
I think it's in between 1,500 and 1,600. Like it's from.
Oh, that's a lot.
Like, it's from like ELC, like early learning, all the way to year 12. But I think there's like it must be only like 100 in each year level or something like that. I think most kids come in year 7, like for their high school.
Yeah. Well, this was a high school, and there was about 900 kids there.
Yeah.
So it was a big school for just being a high school, and it was 2 of us, and it would take. It'd take you an hour if you wanted to do it properly, but you kind of also feel like you just, get 80, 90% of it because it's 14 seconds and it's going to be back. So you're better off just getting most of it and then doing it 3 times a day. And then on the last one, maybe you catch everything. But the thing that I worked at a different school, which was way better, it had 400 kids, but it was a small area. So it was probably the same kind of density. Yeah. And it was a private school. So the first one was public, second one was private. And what they used to do is, like, whenever anyone was doing something naughty at lunchtime, the punishment was you had to pick up 10 pieces of rubbish.
Yeah, well, we used to do that at my school, like at the public school I grew up at. Like, we had like a roster or like something. We would always pick up our own rubbish after every single lunch. And I've tried to implement that at this school, and I don't think they'll go for it because, like, obviously the parents pay a lot of money to go there. They wouldn't be happy if their kids are outside missing class because they're picking up rubbish. But, like, you do the wrong thing, pick up the rubbish. Like, I try yelling at them sometimes. If I see boys do it, I'll go, hey, don't forget your rubbish when you finish. And then they'll be like, oh. Some of them back chat and be like, oh, no, that was my mate. I'm like, well, don't be friends with someone that's littering then. You pick up after them and have a, like, complain to them about it. Say to them, mate, I had to pick up your rubbish because of you. Hold them accountable for what you have to do.
Now you need to make TikToks on that, mate. Make a video, a time lapse with a GoPro in the chest, and how many pieces of litter can you pick up on this time lapse?
Yeah, I should just do a week of it, just pick up everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't know how the parents are going to feel about that, or the school, because you don't want to buy too many things at it.
Yeah. I've thrown shade at a few of them in the day in the life videos, like, oh, picking up rubbish now, and then I'll like show the bin in the air, and I'll be like, oh, it'd be good if the students knew where the bins were, like, and like little jabs at them and stuff, but it didn't change anything. But I spoke to a couple of parents, like, as they walk past, they'll see us pick up rubbish, like, even if it was like school holidays or recess, whatever, I don't know when it is, but like one lady was talking to me a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, oh, it's disgusting, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, it's like, this isn't even bad compared to how much we usually do it. And she goes, I'm going to yell at my boys tonight. And I was like, oh, did they go? And she's like, yeah. And then I said, well, I don't know if it was them doing it. And she goes, no, they're pretty good, but I'm still going to yell at them, so they might tell other people to pick up their rubbish. I'm like, oh, if they're all like that, then good. But, yeah. Like, I saw that groundsman picking up all the rubbish after someone. Probably wasn't you, but next time, pick it up.
Mate, kids are like high school kids, primary school kids. Give me a primary school over a high school any day of the week.
Yeah, well, like, our school is separated into like 3 different campuses, kind of like junior school's almost its own entity. Like, they've got their own principal and everything, and that runs like a machine. Like, that's smooth. It's always clean. Obviously, the little kids, like, they're not going to throw rubbish around. Yeah. And then they come to middle school in year 7. I think it's year 7. They go from year 6 to the middle school. And they start to rebel a little bit because they don't have that, like, the head figure of the junior school. Yeah. Exactly. They start, like, in my area is, like, that middle school area in the mornings. Right. Like, I have to pick up all the rubbish there and, like, then around the oval and stuff. So around the oval is always messy because, like, footy trainings and stuff like that, they'll just throw empty bottles of Powerade or their tape off their shoulders or ankles, whatever. There's always some rubbish and, like, food, drinks, cans, whatever. But middle school is usually the worst because it's just all these kids are just rebelling against what they used to do, and now they don't have that sort of dominant figure above the authority figure there, like, watching over them. So it's, I don't know what to do about it.
Joe, I remember the worst thing to pick up was, because sure you do too, like, you got gloves on, right? Because some things are gross.
I use like the pickup stick. I try to avoid touching anything if I can. Okay,
so no, I used to have that too, right?
Yeah.
But the worst thing to pick up, and I don't know if you had the same experience, is the bloody, the juice box, the plastic covering for the straw. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Because it's too small to pick up with the grease, and then you got your big fat fingers with the glove on, and you got to go on it multiple times just to pick it up. It's so annoying.
I struggle with the icy pole sticks, the little like the paddle pop sticks.
Yeah.
Like, I can't pick those up with the pickup stick. I think yesterday I was standing there for like 30 seconds just trying to get it, and I was looking around like, hopefully no one's watching me just stand over this one paddle pop stick trying to pick it up with this instead of just bending over and picking it up. Like, I wasted way too much time.
Groundskeeper's an idiot. He can't even pick up the paddle pop stick.
I would have looked like I had a stroke or something. I was just going, like I was just in the zone.
Mate, the amount of food, like I was a kid who, I couldn't put down any food. Like good food, could never get rid of it. And you walk around these schools. I'm reminiscing about all this rubbish pickup I used to do 10 years ago.
Yeah,
like it's like there's half-eaten pie. And you're like, I love pies. I mean, I was never tempted to eat anything. That'd be disgusting. But like, there's like someone's gone to the canteen and bought a pie.
Yeah.
Or a sandwich that's still half wrapped in glitter, and they just leave on the floor. And you're like, one, like why? And two, you could have just like, I remember like these sandwiches that are still half wrapped up. Just wrap it up a little bit more. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, oh, mate, stuff like that.
Like I'm sure one of your mates will have the rest of your pie. Like, get rid of it somehow. Someone's going to eat it. But I think part of the issue is probably because a lot of it's not using their own money, and they've just they don't understand the concept of money yet. So they're just like, oh, I get given this money every week. Like, it's not really my money. I haven't worked for it. So maybe once they start getting jobs and stuff, they'd understand. Like, I mean, I'm probably not the best person to talk to about it because I leave half a Parma every meal. I get rolled in the comments for not finishing my meal, but I try and if it's a good one, I ask for a takeaway box and I take it.
No, I'm the opposite, mate. I'll if we go to have a Parma, I'll finish it. Don't worry, I'll finish.
Well, Bob, Bob, the guy that comes with him, one of the dudes. Every time I'm like half done, and I probably shouldn't say this because like he finishes his whole plate, and I'll look down at mine, and there's like still half the chips there, half a Parma, and I'll sort of side eye him a bit, and if he doesn't want it, like if he's full, I'll just, without him looking, I'll like reach down, grab like half of my chips and just slowly put it on his plate just so it looks like I've eaten more than I have for the camera. Just to try and trick people into, because I know I'm going to get shredded regardless, because very rarely am I finishing a full meal. Like, especially if it's a big Parma. Like, I've never been a huge eater. Like,
embrace it. Do the opposite for the comments. Take your
just have one bite.
Exactly. Before you
the Parmas are finished, so I haven't barely touched them.
Yeah, exactly. Do that. Or get everybody else who hasn't quite finished their chips and their salad and pile it all on your plate.
Pile it all. Yeah, I might actually do that this week.
More there than when you started with.
I might see that.
We're back to manipulating the algorithm again, aren't we?
Yeah, I'll trigger a lot of people doing that. Like, oh, this palm was a 9 out of 10. Why didn't you fucking have more than like a quarter of it? This wasn't that good.
Mate, this you bring up all these funny stories about rubbish though, because there was this one time at this school that I found a condom, right? Now, I found
a few.
Okay, here's the mystery of the condom, right? Because it was unraveled, but it didn't quite look used.
Yeah,
right?
I think a lot of students just rip
That's
out.
right.
Yeah,
but it was right next to the external. It was meters from the external path, right? And this is the mystery. And the area it was in was a pretty narrow area. It was like an okay school it was the best public school in the area by a long shot. Yeah. So it was a pretty good, collection. But in that area, the next suburb over is pretty dodge.
Yeah.
And I've always had this mystery. I'm like, is that some high school boys snickering behind a tree? We've got a condom. Or was that actually some drugged up bystander?
Someone actually used it.
It'll be a mystery.
I'd probably rather not know. Yeah. You'd almost rather not know.
I've got this story, mate. I don't know if I ever told this on the podcast, but it's one of the funniest things I've ever had in my. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved, but the guy who was my boss, and I was 18 when I started this place. I didn't know anything. He was one of the weirdest characters. He's probably the weirdest character I've ever worked with. I've had some weirdos work for me, but I got told this story by the registrar of the school, right? So the finance person of the school. Like, this is not some weird student or some, like, this is a legit story.
Yeah.
So this guy, his name's Doug. Right? Yeah, good gardener name.
I work with Doug now, but he's all right.
We've had another Doug work for us, so this is not the other Doug. This is
shout out Doug, man.
Yeah, if you're a Doug, good on you. Please don't do this. So this guy,
like and subscribe.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to the Dugs. This guy he's digging out the front of the school, right? So it's council land technically, but I don't know what he
Yep.
was doing. He comes across and he made a lot of dumb decisions, but this tops the cake. He comes across a black cable, and it's in his way for whatever he's doing. So he gets his Stanley knife out and he starts cutting through this black cable.
Nah.
Right. And I have to preface, I am told this by the second in command at the school, like the head of finance.
Yeah.
Anyway, bloody. So this is about 2 years before I started working there. He's cutting through this black cable with his Stanley knife and he shuts off half the power to Kelmscott. Right. So the school, all the power shuts off, everything. Right. And so he's oblivious, right? Because he's not inside. And he walks in and into the office and he's like, oh, the power's out. And it's like, yeah, it's been out for about 15 minutes. So he goes, oh, and it clicks. I've just cut this cable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then what they do is they call up the Western Power, right, which is the WA Power people, like, hey, we just realised our gardeners cut the cable. Oh, no worries, cool. 10 minutes later, whatever it is, the fire brigade come and they walk into the office and they're like, hey, we're here. They're very solemn. And it's like, so where would you like us to go, kind of thing. And they're like so confused. And what had happened is the Western Power had called the emergency services and just assumed that there was a dead body, right? Oh. And just assumed that this guy had died.
Oh. Because he cut the power.
Because he cut through the cable. They just thought the gardener he didn't. Exactly. And the principal and everything were like, because nobody had set out, because they want to be respectful. They know it would be like, hey, where's the body? We're here with a body bag. Yeah. We'll section it off and, blah, blah. We were the first emergency service to get here. So it was, because they're like, what's a fire brigade? Anyways.
That's what.
So, anyway, so that's not the end of the story, though.
Yeah.
Doug, this guy was just clueless about the entire scenario.
Yeah.
And like he, for whatever reason, didn't register how dumb what he'd done was. They had this rule where if you had to use, like you could use your tools or whatever, but if you needed a replacement or something broke or whatever, you can ask the school to reimburse you for something you used. He blunted his Stanley knife blade cutting through the cable. So like a few days later, he goes to the registrar asking for a small reimbursement for the new blades he bought for his Stanley knife. And the registrar was like, no, you can pick them off. What the hell? And I was like, I could never, I would be embarrassed to ask to start with.
Yeah.
But you shut down the power to half the bloody suburb.
He should have asked him in return, like for a cut of what it cost to fix it.
How much money did that cost? Yeah. How much problems did that cause? I've got so many Doug stories you just brought up, but that one, I unfortunately wasn't there for that one. I've got some good ones for when I was there, but I can't. I just can't. To this day, what the heck? But anyways, the people you
he's lucky. He's lucky to be alive.
100% he is.
Yeah.
My first. So I'm just going to tell you Doug stories now. My first day working there, right? This guy's like, come in at 4 a.m. I'm like, 4 a.m. Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Early start.
Yeah, and I get in there, it's pitch black, right? And he's like, I'm going to show you how to turn on the sprinklers. I'm like, sweet. And a lot of them were manual. So the reason why we've got to get in 4 a.m. is you got to go around and switch them all around. And so this guy's like, we're walking over to the controller box. It's on the oval. And he's like, oh, I've just got to check something. And we go to this hole that's in the ground. And again, it's pitch black, right? So there's this hole. It's probably, I don't know, 600 deep, meter by meter. And there's 100 mil, line, retic line. And there's it's been cut. And there's a loose pipe in there that's been cut out. And both ends have been taped.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at it going, oh, well, we're not going to run the retic now, aren't we? Because he was like, oh, I got to check to see if the guy's done. And he was like, No, I don't think that section gets affected by these stations. Blah blah. So he's just like, oh, I'll just turn it on anyway. So he walked back over. It's probably 30 meters away. Turns it on, and you can hear. You can't see a thing, but you can hear. It's filling up this bloody thing. And we're walking back, and 'cause it's such a big pipe, it's filled up and made a puddle. You're walking in this. Anyway, so I'm like, well, that was dumb. So he's like, oh, well, we can't run the retic now. So, so what am I here doing at 4 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah.
So we twiddled our thumbs until like 5:30 when he decided now it was okay to start the blowers. I mean, it's a bit hazy now, but it was something early like that, And you're not allowed to start these things till 7. But he's like, oh, just stay on the internals. It's fine. No one will hear you. So I got a BR800 steel blower going on my back. Still can't see that much, but, it's getting lighter now. And, so just start blowing stuff down. And maybe 6:30, the retic guy comes in. And I've got a key, and so he signals to me, can I let him in the gate? So I open up the gate and introduced myself. He's like, I'm the retic guy. Oh, no worries. And I told him about what happened. He just couldn't believe it because he was like, everything was finished. I was just waiting for it to dry before I glued it.
Oh, shit. So now it's all wet.
And then what happened is the tape blew off the ends, right?
Yeah.
And because he filled up the hole, sand got through the whole system. The guy was there for hours clearing the sand out of the system. Mate, it was... that was my first morning at that school. Anyways, so many stories.
4 a.m. start on your first day. Rough.
Yeah, and then I found out that was actually not illegal, but they had to pay me overtime. So my boss was like, "Don't do that, mate. Like, you're not allowed to be in before 6 o'clock, otherwise it's penalty hours and stuff." And mate, anyways, that's a long. I'm sure you've worked with some interesting people over the years.
Yeah, definitely a few. There's a lot of stories I probably can't say because
True.
Like I'll get in trouble.
You don't.
I've definitely worked. No. I've definitely worked with a few characters. There's something that comes to mind, but I don't want to get cancelled. Actually, no.
What you can do though, you can throw yourself under the bus. What's the most embarrassing thing you've ever done?
Myself.
Okay, throw yourself, mate. We're an hour and 12 minutes in. The sense.
If you're still listening, all good. No, I remember like early days when I started at BGS with Landscape Solutions. I was with them. One of the dudes that was working with us, we were doing we were relaying turf somewhere, and he wasn't one of the turfies. He just come over to help, and there was a bunch of subcontractors there that were doing. I think they were doing like a arborist, like they were getting rid of a tree or something like that, and for some reason they come out and helped us. And the dude that I worked with at the time, this was like in my first week, I reckon. I was down on my knees rolling out of sod, and he bent down in front of me and he farted. And he just like, he was a few years older than me, but he had a pretty like shit sense of humor, like potty jokes and everything was funny to him. Like, I mean, I'll have a laugh every now and then, but he's just thought everything was funny. Like, and he just laughed and turned around and then as he walked off, I was talking to one of the subcontractor dudes and I pointed at him because the guy was like, he noticed that he was working pretty slow and he was like, just like loitering around and not doing a whole lot. And he goes, what's the go with that guy? And I said, he's actually, he volunteers. He goes to the disabled school across the road. Because we have a disabled school across the road. I said, he goes to the disabled school across the road. He just volunteers here like 2 or 3 days a week to help us out when we need it. We're just doing him a favour. He wants to get out. He wants to be around, like feel normal, work with everyone and stuff. And he wasn't disabled in any way. But the subcontractor looked at him and he goes, oh, yeah, I can see that. And I let it go for like 6 hours. And then I don't think I told the guy otherwise. Like, he would have ended up going home and going, I worked with they volunteered this disabled guy. It's really good. I told the actual guy like a week later because he was talking shit about something. And I told him and he's like, "What?" And I go, "Mate, he believed it. He fully believed it the entire day." we had a laugh about it every like that. He's a good dude. He's not there anymore, but he was alright. He was a good laugh.
I
I've
remember
got plenty, but I can't get into too much because half of them still work there. So.
Exactly. You know, one of my employees, he told me this story from his childhood, which it's so funny and it's so painful at the same time. That he was a kid just playing an oval, like 6, 7, something like that. I don't know how old, but really young. And here's his brother just mucking around playing on the oval. And they see all these pretty flags all over the oval, right?
Oh, no.
Which are the retic flags, you know, indicating where the sprinklers are.
Yeah.
And so they're just running around, pulling all these flags out and putting them in random spots because they thought it was fun. And years later, he works out what they're actually for, and he just cringes every time he thinks about the contractors probably marked out on this table.
Imagine they went out and aerated or something, and they just left the flags where they were, and they just turned the irrigation on, and they just all got holes in them going everywhere.
I can imagine.
That'd be a nightmare.
It's so bad. And then it's funny because I've been doing work with these councils, so we're doing this live tour, right? And we're doing these live events, and the idea is we're getting these brands involved, and they get their gazebos. And so I've been trying to find these live venues that are a great mix between like really nice indoor place to record a live podcast and outdoor place that everyone can hang out, put some gazebos out, Ego, Greenworks, whatever, AEG, all these brands are bringing their gear, get your hands on some, do some demos, blah, blah. And the problem I keep coming up with is the councils are very, very apprehensive about gazebos just for the sake of the tent pegs, right?
Yeah, right.
And I keep going on. I'm like, I run a gardening business. It's a lawn and garden podcast live tour.
Yeah.
Like some of these places, you've got like the world-class turf experts or landscaping. Like these are the people we're getting there. Like, trust me, we don't want to wreck your sprinklers.
Yeah.
But I can also then on the same, I wonder how many stupid public things have happened. Like not public as in the public, you know, the public, stupid things that the public has done that just gives them PTSD whenever anybody mentions anything to do with sticking anything in the ground. So
put a star picket straight through a main line or something like that.
Oh mate, we had a client that had that. They bought the house, you know, and then had these retic problems and worked out it was the bloody sign that was somebody put the sale sign. Star picket straight through retic. Anyways, man.
We had we have a couple of like portables at the school at the moment that have been put onto like a lawn area because they're doing construction work on like a big area of the school. So they've moved like a few year levels over to this area.
Mm-hmm.
And that lawn area was looking decent. Like we had it looking all right and had pop-up sprinklers and everything like that. And there was, it was probably like the start of summer last year. I was like, I'll put on, because I think one bay of sprinklers was still like not covered by the portable. So I was like, I might be able to pop those up and get a bit of life into the grass around it. I put it on and I was waiting for it. I'm like, what's going on here? And then like I started seeing like puddles of water come from under the portable.
Oh
I was like, oh, hang on. And then I noticed that they've put all like stumps and stuff in at the hole and like star pickets and everything. I don't know what they did, but they've obviously gone through the whole line. So I've just had to shut that off completely. And then it was just annoying. But I mean, that whole area is going to be stuffed anyway by the time they move. So we'll probably just start fresh.
Retic's annoying like that though, isn't it? Like you fix Yeah, like I remember this job. Oh, this is early days of my business. I didn't know what I was doing, and I quoted to replace a couple of sprinklers that a dog had bitten off.
Oh, yeah.
And I quoted like it was like $75 or something like that. You know, it was nothing.
Yeah.
You know, probably would today. I'd probably charge $400 for the same thing. I didn't know how to charge. I didn't know how to price. I don't know. And then I replaced the sprinklers. And of course, the dogs chewed through all this stuff. So I'm like, oh, it's just one little poly fitting. I'll put it in and I'll fix it.
Yeah.
And then there's another, and there's another, and there's another.
Yeah.
I remember as clear as day, I spent hours there, earned nothing.
Just chasing them.
The guy took forever to pay me. And I just turned me off doing retic forever, basically.
Yeah. It sucks. We had a couple of issues similar to that with the rebuild. Because I remember when Evergreen were doing it and they got their drainage guys that were putting the drainage, I was watching it, and there was like the first line they came across because they ripped out all the other irrigation, but then there was these two purple pipes under the ground that were a bit deeper, and they got there with the drainage, whatever they were using, and they go, "Oh, what's these pipes?" And I said, I don't think it's the old irrigation because it doesn't look like the old irrigation, so probably just leave it. And they were like, "Nah, it would have to be like old bore water or something, like wouldn't be in use." They cut straight through and it pissed out water, and it was going. Sorry, am I right to just? I just need to let my dog out. I've got the door shut. Sorry.
Go for it. I'll pause it and we'll come back.
Yeah.
Right, so you're back from letting the dog out. What were you
so
saying?
They got these purple pipes and they asked me, and I was like, "Oh, maybe just leave it for now," because it was close to where the tanks under the ground were, like what I mentioned before, the irrigation tanks. I was like, maybe just leave it, sort of. And they cut through it, and it pissed out water for probably 5 or 10 minutes, but it was like it was real like smelly water, stagnant sort of stuff. And they're like, "Oh no, it's got to be old irrigation." And then it stopped, and we're like, "Oh, okay, it must have been." And then they put the drainage through, and they were like, "Oh, what are you gonna do?" And I rang up like one of the guys that I use for all the like pumps and stuff around the school, and I asked him, and I sent him a photo, and he goes, "Oh, they probably should like fix it up and put it back together because it might be something, and you'd rather fix it now than like later." And I don't know why they didn't do it. They were just like, "Oh no, it's old, blah, 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 whatever." So all right, and then they ended up finishing the whole ground, laying the turf, whatever. And then I remember the day they finished it, I sprayed out some wetting agent, and it was raining. I was watering the ground, and then I turned on the transfer pump, like from the pump shed. There's like for the tank under the ground to get all the water from that into the other tank, because like I noticed the multi-trobe or whatever, the lights were at like 40% of the tank. So I was like, "Oh, I've had this off the whole time." So I turned it on, and it usually takes about like, and I turned the main water pump on, like the valve on, to fill up that tank under the oval with the mains if we haven't had much rain. So I had that on. And then when that fills up a certain amount, the ball valve goes up and whatever, it transfers through. And it usually takes about 8 hours to get like one extra light, like one light go up, like a 10% of the tank under the soccer field. And I noticed it wasn't going up, and it had been raining, but not much. And I noticed it was real wet down that corner, and I didn't really click, and I was like, "What's going on here?" And then I turned off the pump and everything, and it stopped. And I sort of clicked, and I was like, "Nah." So I like dug up, and I rang everyone, and they came over, and it was the transfer line from the tanks to the other tank. So the water was coming out of the tank under the oval and just going straight to this cut pipe and just bursting out. So they fixed that, and then once they fixed that, we turned it back on, and it found another spot that they hit as well, and it went like this was they hit like 3 spots, and this was on the 23rd of December. Like it was their last day of before their Christmas break. It was my last day before our Christmas break, and like they come out and they were fixing it, and then they needed to get the parts, and they were going to Reese Irrigation in Mornington, and then they didn't have something. And that one of the dudes ended up staying until like 7 o'clock at night that night, and I felt bad. Like I stayed there with him for like till like 5. And then he messaged me at like 7 o'clock. He's like, "Oh, all done now, mate. It's all working." I was like, "Thank fuck." Like right before the Christmas break. Would have sucked if it happened over the break.
Yeah, but was it the guy who broke it though? Was it the guy who broke it? That's the thing. You need to get the guy who broke it to.
Yeah, so it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't the drainage guys. They had to get the irrigation guys in to like refix it and stuff. But the guy who actually ended up doing it all was like the sort of site supervisor that was running the whole project. So yeah, he was just unlucky that he was one of the only dudes still working. And I was just like, "Oh shit, sorry, mate, but like we got to get this done before the break, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to fill up the tanks to irrigate the new turf that just got laid. And we were watering it 3 times a day for like 2 weeks to get it like knitted in."
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was just exactly. It was wild.
Mate, we're coming up to an hour and a half, believe it or not. And time flies.
I'm getting hungry for a Parma, but that's tomorrow night. So.
But mate, yeah, you got to have a warm up Parma tonight. I did want to ask you before we finish up, though, is I think a lot of people listen, especially if people are still listening to this. Yeah, well, I mean, people do. You know, sometimes podcasts.
I chuck them on when I'm on. I listen to the whole before, like every podcast I'm into, right until the end where they go, the whole through. "All right, where can we find your Instagram?" And I was like, "All right, done. That's the end." Straight off. Yeah.
Well, I'm not doing that right now, so people stay on. Because the question I wanted to ask is, a lot of people, maybe they're starting out in the industry, or maybe they're in a different part of the industry, and they're hearing what you're doing and go, "Do you know, that kind of sounds that sounds good. You know, maybe they've been a lawn contractor, or maybe they're more on Hort, or they go, I kind of would like to start pursuing going down that path. What would you tell somebody who was like, you know what, a groundskeeper, that kind of job, you know, obviously there's not any private schools, probably doesn't come up, but that kind of avenue, what would you recommend for people wanting to get
I've had quite a few messages from people over the last couple of years since doing like TikTok and Instagram, whatever. Sort of kids that have been like, oh, actually, I really like your content, and it's sort of inspired me to get into the industry. And I've even had a couple of people that have messaged me months later and be like, oh, thanks for helping me. I've actually got that apprenticeship job. Like, or like they'll tell me they're applying, and then 6 months later they'll go, I got the job, and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Good stuff. I'd say if you're actually interested in doing it, and like you think you're going to be passionate about it, and it's something you genuinely want to do, just get your foot in the door anywhere. Like, the golf course jobs are probably the ones that are the most available because there's so many golf courses. So even if it is cricket and footy stuff you want to do, like, I know the golf guys that come from golf courses are looked at a higher level than sort of like me coming from a council or anything. Luckily, I fell into the right place at the right time and got to showcase what I know. But based on resumes and stuff, like,
exactly.
I know like the MCG and all that, I'm pretty sure they only hire guys from golf courses. Like, that's what I've been told anyway, because they have a higher knowledge of sort of pest and disease and finer turfs. So usually I say, just like, if you're in Melbourne, get onto Seek, type in turf jobs in Melbourne, find an apprenticeship that suits you or is near where you're at, apply, get your foot in the door. Maybe you don't like the place you're at when you do get that job, but at least you're there and you can start sort of networking with kids at your trade school or whatever like that, and you'll eventually find the right spot for you. Hopefully you don't go to one job and you hate it and you go, oh, this isn't for me, because maybe it's just the wrong workplace and that's not where you should be. But like I said earlier, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a turfie. I'd never crossed my mind. And then I started it sort of as it went on, and I got more and more into it and started enjoying it. I'd say my time at the council, I liked it because it was a job, and like fortnightly RDOs was unreal, and I was sort of just cruising, just getting on a mower, cutting the grass, and then playing cricket on the grounds that I was playing, like cutting. So it was kind of cool. But I didn't really step up and step into like a higher role until obviously I got here and took on responsibility and really sort of showed myself, not just like the workplace, but I got to, I wasn't confident at all when I said I had the MSAC or the Brighton Grammar, and I wanted to challenge myself and see where I was at. But deep down, I didn't think I had what it took to do what I've done so far and to get to the level I'm at. And even now, like with having apprenticeships, having like my own apprentices with me, like Danny, my first apprentice, good dude, but like I basically treat it like a friendship. Like, and even though like I don't realize how much I'm actually teaching them at the time, because I don't even consider myself to be an expert, but I guess the more experience you have and the more you do things, and like they see that and you sort of get it there. And like you could sit here and ask me to name the scientific names of every turf or the weed and stuff, and I couldn't do it. Like, I'll name 10% of them because I've lost everything I learned in trade school. I've probably forgotten, but like you still.
Well, you remember the stuff that really is important. There's book smarts and then there's street smarts. And when you're out in the field,
exactly.
Stuff
like, it's the same as when you're at school doing year 12 or anything like that. Like, you're in maths class and you're learning all these algebra and stuff like that, and calculus and like like I've really never had to do any of that stuff, and like except maybe marking up like a centre square for footy, if you will need to figure out sort of the hypotenuse and stuff like that. Like I had to do the other day because I had the little Plyfix carrots in the corners to show, like, so it makes it easier. And I must have hit him with the scarifier in like December, and I'd only found one, so I was like, oh no, now I need to actually use my brain and figure out where all the other points are and find the angle and the like how long, because it's obviously 50 by 50, but the hypotenuse is actually 70.1 meters or whatever. I was like, oh, I got to actually try to be smart here.
But I think it's the first time that word's been used in this podcast, and I think you're around episode 80.
But that just goes to show that even like the stuff you learn in maths class in school, half of the stuff you don't retain and half the stuff you don't use. And it's similar to like trade school. If you're going to go into your diploma and do that, yes, you use that stuff in the diploma. And I've got a couple of mates I went to trade school with that went and did their diploma, and they were doing all the night school and stuff like that. And now they're supers at golf courses, and they probably have to use it a lot more than your average turfy. But for what I'm doing and everything, I kind of rely more on my experience and just almost muscle memory, and like the network of people I've got around me as well. Like I said, I leaned on like AT from Grass Up a lot. That John Shannon, which it's kind of like not a meet your hero moment, but like I used to look at his, obviously, the website all the time and learn. And then now that he's coaching, like I met him a couple of times at like the seminars of the MCG and stuff like that, and sort of was like, oh, that's John Shannon. Went up and spoke to him, and then now that he's coaching Melbourne Grammar as well as still doing the grounds, and they're like, he knows who I am, and just because we've met a couple of times, he comes to our ground when they play us. So like he'll be walking around, and I'll just chat with him for half an hour or an hour, and he's actually the one that convinced me to stay at Brian Graham before the rebuild, because I had I think St. Kevin's, which is another APS school, they had a couple of jobs going, and I was thinking about applying for it, and I had like an in because I knew someone there. I think it was AT from Grass Up. He was like, oh no, yeah, I know a guy here, and he said, yeah, you apply for it, you get the job straight away. And I was like really considering it because I was so stressed out of being the head groundsman and like having that responsibility. And St. Kevin's grounds are really good, and I was like, oh, it'd be so good to go to a place where it's just easy. Like I can cruise, might have to take a little bit of a pay cut, but I'm going to be better for it because I'll actually get to have a holiday. I'll get to just de-stress a little bit. And John Shannon was like, mate, you've got like, it's pretty hard to get a head groundsman job at a high elite like APS school. Like, he was like, mate, you've got this job. You like, even though you're struggling now, you're better off staying in this job than taking a step back and going somewhere else. Like, work through it. Help, maybe the school will end up helping you out. And luckily they did. They got the rebuild approved and they did all that. And yeah, I'm very glad I stayed and listened to John. So,
well, the grass was always greener kind of stuff as
literally.
Well. Like, so. I put out a video, put out a little short video, literally, the other day from, like when people are in my world, like contractors, they see some of the big contracts and, $100,000, whatever, plus contracts. And like, man, I'd love one of those. Often you don't. No, you don't. Like sometimes if you're a lawn mowing contractor, it's actually better to have a lot of small jobs where people really appreciate you. And the money actually is kind of the same, if not better, And I was messaging, we've had Matt Oliver on the podcast from Suncorp Stadium. And I was seeing some stuff he was putting out on Facebook that it was 10:30 at night here, which means it's past midnight over in Brisbane. And he is sending photos of how he just finished for the night because there was a night game on. And it's hours of work after. And the next, I messaged him. I was like, mate, that's a late night. And he was like, it's got to be later tomorrow night, Sure enough, 11 o'clock or whatever. And he sends a selfie, all finished. And man, like I have a lot of mad respect for these guys, but I think they're some of the most underrated people in all of sports. Easy, but and they love what they do, and it's epic, it's cool, it's fun, concerts, sports ground, blah blah.
No, you have to be passionate about that. What do they say? It's a passion job or whatever.
Exactly. And those guys,
you have to love it.
Yeah, I reckon that the gig you've got is probably especially if they trust you enough to do a rebuild and spend the money, and like the school that we're at. Like I love the school that we're at and doing the work there, and it's never going to be something like what you're doing because we're just trying to make a nice green surface for primary school kids to run around on and kick a ball. And I stripe it up and they don't even care. I'm doing it for me. Like,
you get that. You get the instant.
I could go in circles. I wouldn't care
when you look back and you can actually see that art that you've just done. And like I think a lot of the time I wonder if like the common person walking past even notices the stripes, I don't know if it's just our eye and because we're used to doing it, or if people actually walk past and go, "Fuck yeah, that looks sick." Like half the time, I think that they don't notice, but they probably do. But like, I don't know,
mate. The school I work at, the best part of it is right at the back. The oval is right at the back. And you have to drive down like a cul-de-sac, so a dead-end street to see most of it. And what's out the front, they share it with the church, and the church side is not reticulated at all. and the front is only half its reticulated, and they're not going to spend money on it because they're about to do like a massive redevelopment of it all. So we've been working there for 2 years, knowing this redevelopment is going to happen. Totally content with how the front looks, and they're like, just focus on the internals and the oval, and I have this beautiful oval, and everybody who drives past sees, they just go, this school doesn't spend that much money on their lawn. They really need to work it out, and they've oversowed the internals.
Yeah, well, I mean, our oval's like right in the middle of 2 roads, so everyone that drives, it's like the center of the whole school, so it's very visible, which is kind of like a blessing and a curse.
Right.
Yeah, a
you
little
can
bit.
Show off.
I mean, it is what it is. I'll take it.
Well, mate, I'm looking forward to seeing more of it on your Instagram. This is a part of the podcast where everybody starts turning off.
Where can I find you?
But you got to do some funky patterns and stuff like that. I think you posted the other day. You're looking forward to doing
Yeah. Footy season with the ryegrass, you definitely get to stripe it up a lot better and sort of get around. I haven't been cutting a lot in the last sort of year. Like I just kind of give the mower to the apprentice, and since the rebuild, I'm just like, I'm not as sort of on it as much. I'll do all the little jobs around. I'm just like, all right, you can mow the ground and stripe it up and you roll the wickets and stuff, and I'll do all the little intangible things that no one really sees, like go in at night time and spray the ground because it's the only time I can do it, like 10 o'clock at night sometimes. Not like the guys at Suncorp that are up till midnight, but there's definitely been times where I'll go there, I'm like, what am I doing here at 10:30 at night, like, just finishing up? And then, it's bizarre, but no, it's good. No, I'm as single as can be because like, hey, I can't keep a missus because no one wants to date someone that's like laying in bed thinking about grass at 10 p.m. instead of thinking about that.
I'll tell you what, if there's any ladies listening right now and they're still in the podcast, hit him up.
I feel like there wouldn't be many chicks listening at 1 hour 36 into the podcast. I might clip it and chuck it on the TikTok. That'll be all right. Hey,
to start with,
The Bachelor.
We should. I think we've got out of all of our listeners, the stats are it's 93% male, right? Average age is like 30. Yeah, it's like 25 to 40 or something like that. And I don't think this is true, but it's just 3% non-binary, which I just think it's just people who mostly
they just haven't put details in.
Like it can't be 4% women and 3% non-binary. Like that, I just can't.
Nothing.
I mean, if it is, if it is, whatever. But it must be people who just haven't entered anything in. Or
last time I checked my TikTok, which I haven't checked the analytics in a long time, but I remember I used to go, I wonder what my like female like following is. I think it was like 20%, which I was actually surprised by. I was like, oh, that's actually decent. Yeah,
wow, that's a lot more than you're
I think on my YouTube though, it's like maybe 8 or 9%, and that's probably just friends and family. It's like, go follow me. Yeah.
Well, mate, if you anyway, but the reality is that there's just in grass, it's just mostly guys working in that industry. It's actually not that many people. But anyways, mate, I've got to wrap this up. I've had a lot of fun. People find you on Instagram. And if you're a lady,
if you're a lady, you find me on Hinge as well. I'm on it.
You find him wherever it is. I reckon just was it tomorrow?
You might see me on. You might see me on Married at First Sight next year. I don't know. I might have to sign up. It could be a lot. They actually a funny story with Married at First Sight. This was like through COVID years. Sorry, we're not finishing up just yet. The guys at work were like, because they kind of live vicariously through me, because I was like the only single guy there, so they were loving all the stories of like, oh, I went on a date with this, do that, whatever. And I've kind of slowed up recently, and they don't really like it. But so they tried to get me to go on maths because there was a few of us that were watching it at the time, and they were like, oh, you should sign up. And I was like, no. And then I filled out like half a registration form at work,
right?
And I didn't finish it. I finished. This was like 2020. Just as COVID was like hitting, so I did half and then I gave up because it was taking too long. I was like, no. And then I reckon like 2 weeks later, I got an email from like maths, and I kept getting spam from it saying finish your application, and I thought it was just like an automated thing. And then I got a text message from someone saying, oh, the producer of maths, and they're like, oh, we saw you finished, and I was thinking this has got to be a scam or something. And they ended up replying, and then they were like, oh, can we have a phone call? So I ended up doing a FaceTime with this chick who was the producer of maths. And she was like, "Oh, we saw like half your application, and like we liked what we saw in the first half, but like if you're still interested, like go finish it off, and then we can actually have like a proper like interview for it." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know," because I was a bit worried about, like, I was nervous and thinking, I don't know if I'm the type to go on maths or anything like that. And this was before any TikTok stuff as well. So
Mate.
I spoke to a few people, and I was like, fuck it, I'll apply and I'll see what happens. Ended up having the full thing with them, and there was a guy on the year before that apparently looked a bit like me, and the producer was like, "Oh, you kind of look like Josh from last year," and I was like, and I'd actually spoke to him on Instagram because he was on Instagram Live one day, and I think I asked him like what it was like, and he said it was just shit house, like doing like the dining experience or whatever. They were filming for like 16 hours. They kind of put me off, and I was like, I don't know about this, because all their mental health, they were all coming out in the woodwork like after the show finished, going, "Oh, they stuffed our mental health up," because it was just. Yeah, it was just hectic. And I was like, no, I don't know. Yeah, luckily, they never called me. And she was like, "Oh, because you didn't get on this year, though, we still got your like info for maybe next year and stuff." And luckily, I just never heard anything back. But I feel like if I applied now, because I've got a little bit of social media following and stuff, if I put that in, they might be like, "Oh, he's already got some sort of like foundation that." Even though I'm like, it's not a thirst trap account or anything, but like you might get a little bit of a push there.
Not yet. We're trying to make it.
I don't have the facilities to do the first traps. I don't reckon. I've got the Parma dad bod.
No, look, mate. That's a certain type. You know, if a girl's looking for a Lorny, there's not many who are ripped.
Yeah, true.
A lot of us.
Hey, we sit on a mower all day. All we do is sit on a mower and cut grass. So we don't have time.
Yeah, well, some of us walk behind mowers, but somehow we still have a dad bod, and it's probably got nothing to do with KFC.
Yeah, true. Nothing to do with the 3 weeks of chicken and chips in Tanzania or wherever you were.
I was cycling every day. I was actually fit then, but anyways, mate.
Yeah,
I'm going to wrap this up, bro. But look, I've had a good time, and I think, to be honest, the Married at First Sight conversation is completely
it turned out it was all good. Well, to any lady listening, save me from going on Married at First Sight.
Jump on.
Get on to me early.
I'm all for
I won't have to go on TV and just flaunt myself for a little bit of fame. All good.
No, you can flaunt yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Clip it.
It's going straight on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is going straight on.
I'll have a wife in the next 4 weeks. Hopefully not.
Right. Married at First Sight's a little bit extreme, but Married at Fourth Sight, yeah, I mean, I can get along with that. Right. Now, before we get cancelled, thanks,
Evan.
I get more of my hectic each time. And everybody else, we'll see you in the next podcast. All right, friends, before you go, firstly, well done for making it to the end of the podcast. Secondly, if you have made it to the end of the podcast, you obviously liked the podcast. If you do like the podcast, which you clearly do because you made it to the end, unless you fell asleep or somebody held you against your will, maybe you're the passenger and the driver put the podcast on and it was too awkward to tell them that you didn't like it and you think the host is an absolute wanker. And so you just sat there and suffered. But everybody else, other than those two scenarios, you probably do like it. If you do like it, can you share it? Can you comment? Can you give us ratings? All that sort of stuff. Support in some way, because this is not a big production. And believe it or not, those little things actually make massive differences to the algorithm, helping people find the podcast. And ultimately, if you enjoyed it, maybe somebody else will. So I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for supporting and listening all the way. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Anyways, I'll see you in the next podcast.